Hey guys, MCU Collector here with a new video, and here we have the Amazon exclusive Hasbro Marvel Legends Series X-Men Family Matters 3-pack of Quicksilver, Magneto, and Scarlet Witch. And what an amazing 3-pack this is, from character selection to the costume choices, just all around a great 3-pack. It may even be the best 3-pack that Marvel Legends has given us, and there's been some weird ones, that weren't really the themed, Miss Marvel, Radioactive Man, Captain America. You had Vision, Hulk, and now that I think about it, I can't remember what the third figure in that 3-pack was. Those were the Target exclusives. Oh, and Ultron was in that pack. Another 3-pack, we had the Thor, Groot, and Rocket from Infinity War. And then Captain America Civil War, we had Spider-Man, Captain America, and Iron Man. I did love that 3-pack also, but this one I think takes cake and is just the best one. So originally this was scheduled to release on July 1st, and then Amazon got it in and started shipping orders out. And I got mine today. So people were getting them yesterday, people were getting them the day before, all this and that. Just crazy, but I finally have it and I'm very excited, so we'll get right to it. So here we have the X-Men logo, Quicksilver, Magneto, Scarlet Witch, the Marvel 80 years anniversary, because it looks like all new Marvel Legends are going to be coming out with that logo there. It is not the same as the Marvel 80th anniversary line. That will be a line in and of itself, but because it is the 80th year of Marvel, all the stuff is getting it there. You have an X-Men logo up at the top there. Side artwork looking pretty awesome. You got Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Magneto, and it's the same on the other side. Here on the back of the package, we actually have some comic panels, which look pretty awesome there as well. Let's take a look at that bio. Magneto forms the Brotherhood of Mutants to combat anti-mutant sentiment, but the organization turns into a family matter when he recruits his twin superpowered children, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, to help him carry out his terrorizing agenda. And of course, yes, they are his twin children, even though it was retconned that they were no longer his children, but then it was like retconned back to being his children. Just, all this back and forth between Marvel and Fox that caused a lot of that mayhem. But it's all back to normal now that Marvel has all of the rights and everything. There shouldn't be any kind of infighting between Marvel and X-Men, promoting X-Men, which would promote a movie that they didn't want to promote. Just all kinds of crazy stuff. But anyway, here's a look at some of those comic panels. Again, looking pretty awesome. Here's Quicksilver in the green suit, which, I bet I wouldn't be surprised if we get a release with Quicksilver in that suit at some point down the line. But anyway, let's get right to it and open this 3-pack up. Okay, and here are the figures out of the package. They are looking fantastic. So we have the 3 figures. We have Quicksilver, Magneto, and Scarlet Witch. I am going to go over them individually one by one so you guys can see everything about the figures. You guys can see the articulation. The biggest thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to compare them to previous releases of older figures. So an older Quicksilver figure, an older Scarlet Witch figure, and an older Magneto figure. And then I know everyone's comparing with this one. I'll do that as well. So the comparisons will come, the articulation will come, and I'll show you the accessories, because each of the figures actually does come with a little something. So first, Quicksilver. Okay, so here's Quicksilver next to Quicksilver. Now this Quicksilver, I forget, was, I think, maybe in the Blob wave. A very older figure. Those were the early days of Hasbro using, I believe, an older Toy Biz body mold, which was absolute hot garbage. The articulation, these ball joints, at the time I'm sure it was great, but now this thing just would not fly. The proportions just look odd when it comes to the feet, and I just don't like it. But a very similar costume choice, so you could kind of see there. I think I actually like the blue better in this one than in this one, whereas you see them side by side, it almost has like a more turquoise hue to it. On camera it looks very blue, but in hand it does look a little bit more turquoise, kind of like the Fantastic Four suits, the Walgreens exclusives. But here we have it. So one thing to really watch out for, it's difficult with Amazon because you don't get to actually go into a store and see the figures and hopefully be able to choose one with the best paint apps. But Quicksilver, it's going to be very hit and miss on this white lightning bolt stripe, through his chest and then around his waist, because the paint apps just aren't very good on it. So you'll see some spots where the white is just not there. So a couple of issues. So, you know, really be on the lookout for that. If it's really going to bother you, then, you know, get an exchange. But just be aware that it may be a little bit tough. First, let's go over the articulation of this new Quicksilver figure, and then we'll get in for a closer look. So the head can look all the way down. Can get him to look all the way up, which is great. There is tiny pivot in there, and then of course you can do a full rotation in the head. His shoulders go up this high. There is a butterfly joint. This figure is using the all new, all different Spider-Man 2099 buck. So great articulation there. You get upper bicep swivel, double jointed knee, which works well. Wrists swivel, and the hands do hinge up and down. There is an ab crunch, so you can't get them to crunch forward that much. You can't get them to crunch back that far. There is a waist swivel in there. Legs go out. Oop, probably pushed it a little too far. Legs go out that far apart. You get an upper thigh cut there. Double jointed knee. There is a boot cut there, and then nice ankle pivot with the foot hinging all the way down and hinging upwards some ways. So real quick, let's get in closer for a closer look. Okay, so here's a close look. The head sculpt, I think, looks really good. The gray hair, you know, comes out looking really good. It doesn't really look like an old man, which is something that I like. And then the sculpt of the hair, you know, with the tufts going back to look like he's running through the wind. So I like the way they do that. Now, mine isn't the only one, but you can really see the gap between the head sculpt and the hair. I've seen that on multiple figures so far. Not too big of an issue, but, you know, that is something that kind of sticks out and is noticeable. So here, again, my paint apps are pretty good. There's some sloppy paint in the creases of the muscle. So that's, you know, the biggest thing that happens with some of these figures. So from what I've seen, there's a blue spot that comes through right there, and I've seen that on pretty much every single one, and then a blue spot that comes right there. Again, I've seen that on pretty much every single figure, so it's gonna happen. On the back, it's actually not so bad. There's a spot there, but surprisingly, it's pretty good on the back. But, you know, in the front, it kind of suffers. But, you know, not too bad. The black comes out looking good. The gloves and the boots are done in a pearly white color, and I actually see some of that marbleization going on in there. The same with Scarlet Witch. She's got crazy marbleization going on, so it doesn't bother me. I think it actually looks pretty good sometimes. So just something to be aware of. And then here on mine, you actually have some of this pearl white coming through on the elbow where they didn't quite hit it all. And then the only accessories that Quicksilver comes with is actually these two running hands that I already put on the figure, because out of the package he comes with the fist hands. There. So now let's take a look at Magneto. Okay, so here's a look at Magneto. So one thing that's pretty interesting is, you know, we just got a Magneto figure in the Apocalypse wave. I guess not just, as a year ago now. But I really like this figure, but really wanted the classic colors. And that's what we get here now. So one thing that I thought and assumed, and maybe I just didn't take a real close look at the promo images. I'll have to go back and see if they made changes. I thought this figure was basically going to be a repaint of this figure. And I would have been very happy with that. I really like this figure. Just one of the classic colors. So we got the classic colors, and the figure is all kinds of different. Like, I don't know if any piece from this figure is the same on this figure. Maybe hands. I don't even know that. So it's a big surprise, and it's not a bad surprise or anything like that. And then here we have the Jubilee Wave Magneto, which was the Toys R Us exclusive, which people had a difficult time getting a hold of. And people did not like this figure. There were a lot of complaints about it as far as the size and things like that. I never thought it was a terrible figure. It was a classic look, so I was pleased with it. There was a couple things I hated, like those ball hip joints that I just can't stand on figures. But it was still a solid figure, you know, with Magneto in the classic costume. So now we hit something that's updated and upgraded, so even better. But one thing that's interesting to note, that these capes are the exact same. So they reused the cape from the Jubilee wave. So it's the exact same cape, same sculpt, same everything, but the new one is better because we actually get a new metallic paint right along here, and then some black shading kind of throughout. You can see the metallic on the collar piece a little bit more there, whereas on the original release there really wasn't a metallic there, and there was no shading in the cape. But again, it is the same cape. Now let's get in closer to Magneto. Actually, let's go over the articulation first. So with the cape on, it's going to hinder some articulation. So you can get Magneto to look down, you can get him to look up. There is some pivot in there, and then of course side-to-side motion. Now with the cape on, it's kind of difficult, but you can work it. You can get the shoulder up that high. You would normally be able to get a full rotation. Obviously right now with the cape we can't do that. You get an upper bicep swivel there, a double jointed elbow, which gives you a little bit more than 90 degrees, so not so bad. There is a wrist swivel, unlike the Jubilee wave, which the glove and forearm and everything was one piece, and then the hands do hinge. There you get an ab crunch that, let's see, you can get them to crunch down that much, which is really good actually. Crunching back you can get to do, but the cape is going to kind of get in the way, and it just, he can stand there, it just looks kind of funky there. There is a waist swivel in there as well. This floating belt piece can be moved around, so you can move the waist. His legs go out that far apart. There is an upper thigh cut there. We get a double jointed knee, which works okay. I'm not sure if it's mine, the way the sculpted legs are, just kind of difficult. There is a boot swivel there, foot that hinges all the way down, hinges up only slightly. There wasn't a whole lot of movement in there, and we do get a nice ankle pivot in there as well. So there he is. Now let's take a closer look. Okay, so here is a close-up look at Magneto. So one thing that you'll notice on the head sculpt, you see a lot of shadows and everything. It's difficult to get the lighting in there because the helmet piece is actually a different sculpted piece that's glued onto a head sculpt on there. Now, it is not removable. You could remove it, but he wouldn't have hair or anything like that in there. But you know, that's something that you can do on your own. But because it's a separate piece, that's why we're getting a lot of the shading in there, because you could see that you can actually kind of flip open that helmet and you could see that there is a full head sculpt in there. Now, one of the other things that comes along with that being the case is, my opinion, the head looks very, very big. Now, it's a good and a bad thing. Normally, a big head just doesn't look good on a figure. However, if we're talking realistically, it's a helmet on top of somebody's head, so it should be bigger. I think it's a little too big, but that's just me. I can get over it and overlook it. It's not that big of a deal, but I did think that I should just kind of point that out. As far as the paint apps on this guy, there's nothing really to worry about. A couple of things on the gloves or the gauntlet pieces, as well as the boots. You get a lot of red that's kind of bleeding through on the purple. Not anything, I guess, you know, if Hasbro would have gone over and done another purple coat or something, but you know, it's not terrible. Like you could see at the wrist over there. There's some of it on the boots. I don't actually have too much of a problem, but you could see that in some of those creases you got some red coming through where there should be purple. Again, nothing too bad, nothing to complain about. I know it seems that with X-Men figures some of the paint apps seem to be real hit or miss, and in my opinion, it's nothing too bad here. Now, this figure uses the Doctor Strange body mold. I think that was the first figure to use it, like from the Hulkbuster wave. That's what torso this is. So it actually ends up being a little bit smaller than, say, like the Apocalypse Wave Magneto, which, God, I really like this figure. But there is a noticeable size difference there, and you can see, you know, just the size of the heads. Look how big that one is compared to that one. So it's just interesting. You know, this one stands so much taller, but it is what it is. Now we get this head sculpt, which is just kind of a calm, relaxed head sculpt. We got a second one included, which kind of has a gritting face Magneto. You know, he's showing some teeth. And I can't seem to get it on because this cape is kind of bulky and driving me crazy a little bit. So there we go. You can see his eyes are whited out and he's showing some teeth, you know, like he's, you know, either using his powers or something. But that does look pretty good. Now the head, again, it's the same size because the helmet itself is actually the same. It's just glued on there. Not so much of a problem. Paint apps on the helmet actually came out looking pretty good. Nothing to complain about on either two of mine. So there is Magneto. Now let's take a look at Quicksilver. I mean, Scarlet Witch. Okay, so here are the two Scarlet Witch figures out of the package, or side to side compared. So we have the earlier release, which was in the All-Father wave, Scarlet Witch, and we have the new one from the 3-pack. They are actually, for the most part, a lot of the same figures. So you get the same torso pieces, the same legs, different feet, different forearms, and then we also, of course, have a new head sculpt. Same cape, same hands, so just a couple of differences, even though it looks like there's a huge size difference between the two, and that's because this one has those terrible heels, which makes it very difficult for female figures to stand, even though for some reason I'm having a lot, well, no, there she goes. I was having, wow, see, you know, put her in my detolf, she wants to fall over constantly, but that's why, because the heels on this one does not have heels. So let's take a look at the articulation of the new Scarlet Witch figure. Okay, so here's the articulation on Scarlet Witch. So the head, you're not going to get any movement really in it. You can get some side to side, and really that's it, because the head is just on a ball joint. No hinge to it whatsoever. So really just side to side motion. Arms you can get to go up this high. For some reason the cape on this side just kind of seems to want to get in the way, so that side is not getting any higher, but you would be able to get a full rotate. I'm not getting really any motion, and that cape is really getting in the way on this side. You get a swivel at the elbow because it is a single jointed elbow, and then you're only going to get just under 90 degrees with this. Forearm has a nice glove, so that's new. You get wrist swivel at the hand, and then hinge for the hand. Get that on both sides. We have a diaphragm joint here, so she can move to the side that much, move to the other side that much there. So actually some pretty good range of motion in this diaphragm joint. She can go back that much. She can crunch forward that much. No waist swivel, of course. Legs go out that far apart. You get upper thigh cut, double jointed knee. No boot swivel or anything. Ankle pivot, that works out great. Hinge foot goes all the way down, up slightly. I didn't check this, but she can get her foot to kick up that far, which is pretty good, and then very little moving towards the back. Now, one thing that I think is actually kind of funny is, you know, without the heels, this cape actually seems a little too long, so it's actually a little bit more difficult to get this figure to stand, but that cape really helps kind of prop her up, which is, you know, kind of weird. We get rid of those heels, but then this one is difficult to stand. And then one thing to note that I absolutely hate with these female figures, these skinny legs. These legs are so skinny and can get warped so easily. So mine is pretty gummy, but it was sitting out in front of my door in the 100-degree heat today. That could be part of the reason on mine. And it keeps wanting to kind of bend back, which is, you know, that's pretty frustrating actually, you know, when we kind of get an improved figure. But the cape does help get her to stand up. Now let's take a closer look. The highlight here for me in this 3-pack is actually the Scarlet Witch head sculpt. I think this is one of Hasbro's absolute best, whether female figure, male figure, MCU figure, digital face print, you name it. This head sculpt just came out absolutely beautiful. Hasbro did a fantastic job all around on this head sculpt. So from the sculpt of it, from the skin tone, the paint apps of the eyes and the eye shadow or eyeliner, whatever it is, the lipstick, Hasbro just did an absolutely fantastic job. And you can see it's a huge difference from the All-Father Wave Scarlet Witch to this Scarlet Witch, and I really like the way this came out. Even the hair looks really good. You know, you get the darker color, almost black, but then you get the brown highlights throughout. Really makes this look really good. So the head sculpt is just fantastic. Now the clothing on her is all red, nothing special about that, but the rest of the figure, where you normally we would have skin tone or whatever, is a metallic pink color, and because of that we get a lot of marbleization throughout. the figure, especially up here in the upper torso. Like when I took it out of the package, I popped the head off so I can get the cape out without having to worry about it cutting the plastic. You could see that there's just marbleization all over the chest of this figure. You can see a little bit in the back, but the legs have it. So, you know, anytime we get that metallic looking paint, those are the kinds of things that we're going to come across. And you can see, of course, there's no hinge on that ball joint there. And again, this is the same exact cape, just a darker red compared to the All-Father Wave Scarlet Witch. So we'll pop that head right back on there. And again, this does look really, really good. So I know everyone always asks for head swaps and that sort of thing. It's not something I normally do, but I'm going to go ahead and do it here. Yes, of course, because it is the same figure, the Scarlet Witch head sculpts could be changed out, but the reds are not going to match, so it won't really look too good in my opinion. But there you have, actually, you know, it's not terrible, but the red crown definitely doesn't match. Yeah. I guess it does look kind of funky. I'm looking at it through my viewfinder and it doesn't look so bad, but in person the red really, really clashes, and you know, I don't care for the way that looks actually. And then here with the high heels, that, I guess that works a little bit better because the darker red can really go with the brighter red and it's not so bad, but yeah. Now let's take a look at some Magneto head swaps. Maybe it's just me, but I really like this head sculpt and this helmet. So I know somebody out there is going to do some painting and, you know, paint the black red, paint the red purple, and that would look really good. So this is my favorite head sculpt, and this is from the Apocalypse Wave. So I think that's kind of the best looking one that we have there. And thankfully, the Apocalypse unhelmeted head sculpt of Eric Lenscher does fit on this figure, and I do like the way that looks. It actually looks really good and fits the figure just perfectly. And here we have the Jubilee Wave Magneto head sculpt on there, and that actually doesn't look so bad. The red's not a perfect match, but I think it actually looks pretty good. No complaints there. Maybe sits a tad bit high, but the cape kind of helps cover up some of that gap. I don't know, I kind of like the way this looks. It's nice that you can actually kind of see his face, because on these other ones, you know, it's really difficult to really see his face coming through because, you know, the helmet itself really gets in the way. But you can see it's a pretty good head. It's a pretty good sculpt to the face. It's just, you know, the huge helmet, and I don't know, it just makes it look really bulky. Even though this head sculpt's actually really wide as well, but I do like the way that this actually looks. And because I got curious, here is the Apocalypse Wave Magneto's cape on the new Amazon exclusive 3-pack, and you know what, I like this cape a lot more. So I'm happy with this 3-pack, but you know what, the Magneto figure actually does disappoint me a little bit. I think the Apocalypse Wave set a bar that was really high, and that this figure, for me personally, it just did not reach that bar. I think the Apocalypse Wave Magneto is just such a solid figure all around. So it's too bad that this one isn't quite the right color scheme, although it's, you know, definitely not black. There's a little, it'd be a very dark purple type of shade, but you know, if it was a little bit more of this brighter purple color, or you know, matched you know, this cape, I would much prefer it this way. So just my opinion, but there it is. Okay, so there's my review of the Amazon exclusive Family Matters X-Men 3-pack with Quicksilver, Magneto, and Scarlet Witch. You guys let me know down in the comments below what you guys think of this 3-pack. Have you received yours yet? If not, hang in there. It should be coming soon, but I am curious to know what your guys' thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think of the video. Hit that thumbs up if you guys liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, guys, thank you for watching.